In 2018, the United States, under the leadership of President Donald Trump, embarked on an aggressive trade policy characterized by the imposition of tariffs on goods imported from various countries, most notably China. This marked a significant departure from decades of free trade advocacy and ushered in a new era of protectionism in the global economy. Trump's tariffs, primarily targeting steel, aluminum, and a wide range of Chinese products, were implemented through executive orders and trade agreements, often bypassing traditional legislative processes. These actions sent shockwaves through the global trading system, sparking retaliatory tariffs from trading partners and igniting fears of a full-blown trade war. The tariffs were met with mixed reactions domestically, with some sectors like manufacturing initially welcoming the protectionist measures, while others, including agriculture and consumer goods, expressed concerns about the potential negative impacts. The implementation of these tariffs marked a pivotal moment in American economic policy, the ramifications of which continue to reverberate today. The genesis of Trump's tariffs can be traced back to his America First campaign rhetoric, which centered on the idea that the United States had been taken advantage of in trade deals for far too long. Trump argued that these deals had led to the outsourcing of American jobs, particularly in the manufacturing sector, and contributed to the decline of American industrial might. He promised to renegotiate these deals to secure more favorable terms for the United States and to protect American workers and businesses from what he perceived as unfair foreign competition. The tariffs were thus presented as a tool to achieve these objectives, a way to force trading partners to the negotiating table and to extract concessions. They were also framed as a means to reduce the trade deficit, which Trump saw as a sign of economic weakness. However, the imposition of tariffs also reflected a broader shift in American foreign policy under the Trump administration, one that emphasized economic nationalism and a more confrontational approach to international relations. Central to President Trump's trade strategy was the belief that tariffs could be used as leverage to extract concessions from trading partners and renegotiate what he viewed as unfair trade deals. This approach, rooted in his self-proclaimed prowess in the art of the deal, aimed to rebalance trade relationships in favor of the United States and reduce the trade deficit, which Trump often cited as evidence of America being taken advantage of. The tariffs, therefore, were not merely about protecting domestic industries, but also about asserting American economic dominance on the global stage. The administration argued that these measures would ultimately lead to a more favorable trading environment for American businesses and workers. By raising the cost of imported goods, the tariffs were intended to make American-made products more competitive, thereby boosting domestic manufacturing and creating jobs. Moreover, the threat of tariffs or their actual imposition was used as a bargaining chip in trade negotiations, aiming to pressure countries like China into opening up their markets, reducing subsidies, and strengthening intellectual property protections. However, critics argued that this approach to trade policy was deeply flawed, overlooking the complexities of the global economy and the interconnectedness of global supply chains. They contended that tariffs, while offering short-term protection for certain industries, would ultimately harm the American economy by raising prices for consumers, increasing costs for businesses, and inviting retaliatory tariffs from trading partners. This, they argued, would stifle economic growth, reduce competitiveness, and ultimately undermine the very jobs the tariffs were intended to protect. Furthermore, critics questioned the effectiveness of using tariffs as a negotiating tactic, arguing that it could backfire by escalating trade tensions, damaging relationships with key allies, and undermining the rules-based trading system that had underpinned global economic growth for decades. They argued that a more effective approach would involve engaging in multilateral trade negotiations and addressing underlying structural issues in the global economy, rather than resorting to unilateral actions and protectionist measures. The immediate impact of Trump's tariffs was felt unevenly across the American economy, creating both winners and losers in the trade war's crossfire. Some domestic industries, particularly those in the steel and aluminum sectors, experienced a short-term boost as the tariffs shielded them from foreign competition. Steel producers, for instance, ramped up production and hired more workers in response to the reduced influx of cheaper foreign steel. However, this protection came at a cost for other sectors that relied on these materials as inputs, such as manufacturing, construction, and automobiles. These industries faced higher prices for raw materials, cutting into their profit margins and making their products less competitive. The agricultural sector, a major exporter, was also caught in the crossfire as retaliatory tariffs from China and other countries targeted American agricultural products, leading to a decline in exports and financial hardship for farmers. Consumers too felt the pinch as the tariffs contributed to rising prices for a range of goods, from washing machines and refrigerators to cars and electronics. While the tariffs did lead to a shift in some manufacturing back to the United States, the overall impact on employment was mixed. While some jobs were created in protected industries, job losses in other sectors, particularly those negatively affected by retaliatory tariffs and higher input costs, offset these gains. Moreover, the tariffs fueled uncertainty in the business environment, making companies hesitant to invest and expand, further dampening economic growth. The trade war also disrupted global supply chains, forcing companies to scramble for alternative suppliers and navigate logistical challenges, adding to their costs and complexity. The immediate impact of the tariffs highlighted the interconnectedness of the global economy and the difficulty of implementing protectionist measures without generating unintended consequences. While providing temporary relief for some domestic industries, the tariffs created a ripple effect throughout the economy, harming other sectors, raising prices for consumers, and injecting uncertainty into the business environment. The long-term consequences of these policies, however, remain a subject of debate and ongoing analysis. Section 4: Beyond the Surface, Unintended Consequences and Hidden Costs. Beyond the immediate and visible impacts, Trump's tariffs unleashed a cascade of unintended consequences and hidden costs that rippled through the American economy. One of the most significant was the rise in uncertainty and volatility in the business environment. The unpredictable nature of the trade war, with tariffs being imposed, lifted, and reimposed, made it challenging for businesses to plan for the future. This uncertainty led to delayed investments, reduced hiring, and a general reluctance to expand operations, ultimately hindering economic growth. Moreover, the tariffs contributed to a rise in inflation, as businesses passed on the increased costs of imported goods and raw materials to consumers. This erosion of purchasing power disproportionately affected lower-income households, who spend a larger portion of their income on essential goods and services. The tariffs also had a chilling effect on innovation, as companies, facing higher costs and uncertainty, cut back on research and development spending. Furthermore, the trade war damaged relationships with key allies, who felt caught in the crossfire and pressured to take sides. This strained alliances not only on the economic front, but also on diplomatic and security issues, undermining American leadership and influence on the global stage. The tariffs also undermined the rules-based trading system, which had underpinned decades of global economic growth and stability. By acting unilaterally and resorting to protectionist measures, the United States eroded trust in the system and emboldened other countries to pursue similar policies, further fragmenting the global trading order. The unintended consequences of the tariffs underscored the complexity of the global economy and the interconnectedness of global supply chains. They highlighted the fact that protectionist measures, while seemingly offering short-term benefits to specific industries, can have far-reaching and often detrimental impacts on the broader economy, affecting businesses, consumers, and international relations in unforeseen and often negative ways. Section 5: The specter of history echoes of the 19th century in modern trade wars. The trade policies enacted by the Trump administration, characterized by protectionism and tariffs, have drawn comparisons to the economic climate of the 19th century, a period often associated with trade wars and economic nationalism. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930, infamous for exacerbating the Great Depression, serves as a stark reminder of the potential dangers of protectionist policies. This act, which raised tariffs on over 20,000 imported goods, triggered retaliatory tariffs from trading partners, leading to a collapse in global trade and deepening the economic crisis. While the scale and context of Trump's tariffs differ significantly from the Smoot-Hawley Act, the underlying principles and potential consequences bear striking similarities. Both instances reflect a belief in economic nationalism, where protecting domestic industries from foreign competition is prioritized, often at the expense of global economic cooperation. The imposition of tariffs, while intended to safeguard domestic jobs and industries, can backfire by triggering retaliatory measures, disrupting global supply chains, and ultimately harming the very economies they are designed to protect. The 19th century witnessed a period of intense competition among European powers, with tariffs and trade barriers frequently employed as tools of economic warfare. This period also saw the rise of mercantilism, an economic theory that viewed trade as a zero-sum game, where one nation's gain was another's loss. This mercantilist mindset, with its emphasis on maximizing exports and minimizing imports, often led to protectionist policies and trade conflicts. The lessons from history, particularly the disastrous consequences of the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, serve as a cautionary tale against resorting to protectionism as a solution to economic challenges. The interconnectedness of the global economy, the complexity of global supply chains, and the potential for retaliatory actions make tariffs a blunt and often counterproductive instrument. History suggests that fostering international cooperation, promoting free and fair trade, and addressing underlying structural issues in the global economy offer a more sustainable path to economic prosperity and stability.